Good morning, everyone. I'd like to hereby call to order the Escambia County Planning Board meeting for May 3rd, 2022. We do have 4 voting members, so we do have a quorum. At this time, I'd like to ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Ask everyone to please put your phones on silent or buzz so they don't disturb the meeting. And at this time, I'd like to ask staff, good morning, everyone. Do we have proof of publication?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and does that publication meet all of the legal requirements?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Chair will entertain a motion to waive the reading of the legal.
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Board members, you've been previously provided the meeting minutes from last month's meeting. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to those meeting minutes? Hearing none, Chair will entertain a motion to accept. Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Planning board members and members of the public, the planning board has received the hearing package for May 3rd, 2022. Chair will now entertain a motion to accept that planning board hearing package and the legal advertisement into evidence.
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we are going to skip the the planning board follow-up and action. We'll get those at the end of the meeting. Should be noted that we had another member join us. Good morning. And I see another one walking in, so we do have 6 members of our quorum now. We're going to go directly into our first case. I've noticed that some of you have opted to donate time to another person, which is allowed by the rules of this board. We just ask that if you do that, you let us know ahead of time so that we know how to set the timer for the person who is speaking. We try to be fair to everybody, give everybody the same amount of time, and we do allow sharing of time or giving of minutes. So, okay, our first case today is OSP 2022-01. The applicant is Frank Westmark, who is acting as the agent for Owen Family LLC, who is the owner. 1400 block North Highway 29 in the end of Hillock Road. It's 99.45 acres from conservation neighborhood to mixed-use suburban. This is an opt-out. That the board review and recommend to the Board of County Commissioners for adoption an ordinance amending the Escambia County Midwest Sector Plan Final Land Use Plan. That is figure 2.01.A, removing a parcel within section 03, Township 1 North, Range 31 West. This is located on North 29 and contiguous parcel within section 4, Township 1, Range 31, located on Hillock Drive. Cumulatively totaling 99.46 plus minus acres from the Escambia County Midwest Sector Plan. Further amending Part 2 of the Escambia County Code of Ordinances, the Escambia County Comprehensive Plan 2030 as amended, amending Chapter 7, the Future Land Use Element, Policy FLU 1.1.1 to provide for an amendment for the 2030 Future Land Use Map, assigning a future land use category mixed-use suburban. All right. Good morning. Do we have a staff presentation before we go in? Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
If you'll
Good
introduce
morning.
yourself, Allison. Good morning.
Allison Lindsay, Urban Planner, Development Services. So this is the OSP 2022-01. This is the location map showing the 2 parcels requesting the opt-out. And this is the zoning map showing the two parcels, one MDR zoning and the LDMU zoning. This is the flood zone map showing the flood zone on the area, and this is a USDA prime soils map showing the prime soils on the parcels. This is the wetland map, and this is the 2020 future land use map. Before, this is the AA15 prior to the adoption of the 2030 mixed-use suburban. This is the existing future land use and DSAP map showing the areas are conservation neighborhood. And this is the proposed requested flu to mixed-use suburban. This is the aerial photo of the site. And this is the sign that's posted on one of the signs on Highway 29 in Cedar Tree. This is just a property from 29 in Cedar Tree. This is looking south along Highway 29. This is looking east across Highway 29 from the subject parcel on Cedar Tree and 29. This is looking north from the property along 29. Looking west along Cedar Tree from 29. This is the public hearing sign that was posted at the entrance to the parcel at the end of Hillock Road. And this one, it shows the intersection of Ridgeway and at the dead end of Hillock. And if you notice the little insert, it actually shows the placement of the sign. There really wasn't any place to put it on the actual property because that was like a little path. So I just posted it right there. I just wanted everyone to know exactly where the sign was posted. And this was the dirt trail that was leading to the Hillock parcel. This is looking at the neighboring properties where the sign was placed. This is looking down the trail onto a portion of the parcel at the end of Hillock. Looking back, actually down the trail looking toward the Ridge Lane in Hillock. And that's the maps and photography. If you want us to go into the findings or...
Yeah, let's go ahead and do the findings for the staff now, and then we'll have the presentation come up.
Okay. So the applicant is requesting to remove two parcels from the adopted Escambia County Midwest Sector Plan. It's in the Jacks Branch Detailed Specific Area. The subject parcels are located on the eastern boundary of the sector plan, parallel to Highway 29, just north of Neal Road. The applicant is also requesting that the Board of County Commissioners assign a future land use category of mixed-use suburban. The applicant stated that there is no immediate proposed development plans for the site. Based on the public records of Escambia County Property Appraiser, the parcels are currently used as timberland. The current underlying zoning for the easternmost parcel is low-density mixed use, which allows 7 dwelling units per acre, and the smaller parcel is zoned MDR, allowing 10 dwelling units per acre. The existing land use derived from the adopted DSAP land use map identifies the parcel under the conservation neighborhood with a maximum residential development allowance of 3 dwelling units per acre. For the analysis of the availability of facilities and services, we have sanitary sewer, solid waste, stormwater management, traffic, potable water, rec and open space, and public schools. For potable water, the area is supplied by Cottage Hill Waterworks, and the wastewater is supplied to the region by the Emerald Coast Utilities Authority, and their level of service standards within Escambia County being at 210 gallons per residential connection per day, and the non-residential uses are calculated by the service provider at the time of the application. Solid waste service, the level of service is 6 pounds per capita per day. Based on the applicant's submittal, there is no development proposed for the parcel at this time, and once a project is proposed and the application is submitted to the county, such proposal will identify the providers for the sanitary sewer, waste proposal, and any development will be reviewed and must receive approval through the site plan process. So, based on the DSAP's original analysis for stormwater, all developments are required to meet or exceed the standards established with the Northwest Florida Water Management District. Again, there is no proposed development at the time. However, the applicant has acknowledged the requirements for the stormwater management, and once a development is proposed, it will be reviewed and must be approved through the site plan review process. For traffic, streets, and access, a review of the area shows that various transportation improvements are planned near the DSAP, including the capacity expansion of US 29. The application stated that there is no proposed project, and any future development will be required to have a formal submittal and review. For rec and open space, the intent of open space is to serve as a buffer to protect and preserve areas of significant natural resources and wildlife habitat while offering passive recreation opportunities to the residents. And for public schools, based on the public school record of the Escambia County, the assigned schools that service this area are Jim Allen, Ransom, and Tate. The school district staff is part of the site plan review process, having the ability to comment on all the proposed projects and school capacity in Escambia County. For impacts on the natural environment, based on the geographical information system, the subject parcels do not appear to be in a wellhead protection area. And for historical significant sites, the applicant has provided documentation stating that no historical sites were found. For stormwater, private developments are responsible for constructing on-site stormwater systems and the infrastructure to connect on-site systems to the regional county stormwater system. Wetlands identified may be subject to regulatory jurisdiction of the Army Corps of Engineers. Therefore, platting of lots and all other development must entirely be outside of a prime farmland and designate the area for agricultural or open space use. Comprehensive plan requirements for changes to the existing DSAP. Section 2.02 Development Program of the Sector Plan illustrated that the development calculations by individual DSAP allowances, the total developable land under the Jacks Branch is approximately 5,231.70 acres. Under the Muskogee branch, the DSAP located in the southern section of the sector plan, the developable is approximately 3,380.10 acres. The parcels are north of Wellline Road in the Jacks Branch DSAP with access via Highway 29 in the conservation neighborhood. If approved, the requested removal of the parcel from the sector plan would not create a fragmented DSAP. The parcel in relation to the individual DSAP land use category and in relation to the overall sector plan in the aggregate acres of any granted opt-outs. The applicant's parcel is approximately 99.45 plus or minus acres, is located in the Jacks Branch DSAP, and is specifically identified in the land use map under section JB 51. Based on staff's calculations, utilizing data from the section 2.02 of the DSAP document, the total developable acres in the entire DSAP is 8,611.80 acres. The applicant's parcel represents 1.15% of that existing developable acres. Developable calculations, under the developable calculation table 2.02, the total residential developable acres in the Jacks Branch under the conservation land use is 2,565.60 developable acres. Removal of the applicant's 99.45 plus or minus acres would result in a decrease of 3.87% of the available developable acres. The specific Jacks Branch DSAP land use for parcels in section JB 51 are identified as conservation neighborhood with total developable acres of 238.90 acres and a maximum dwelling of 716 dwelling units using the high density calculations. Derived from the analysis on the baseline data, we can identify the following trends. The applicant's parcel represents 41.62% of the total developable area for this section, and removal of the applicant's 99.45 acres from the total developable acres for JB 51 would result in a reduction of 298 total dwelling units under the high density allocation. So this is the 8th opt-out request that was submitted to the county, and if approved, the total sector plan aggregate acres would be 264.03 acres. Assuming the maximum theoretical build-out under the mixture of uses, the DSAP area would produce approximately 27,145 jobs. When analyzed using the maximum residential build-out of 23,000 dwelling units, the result is a jobs to employee residence ratio of 1.18. It should be noted that although there is no single perfect ratio, an area is generally considered to be balanced if it has a jobs to housing ratio of roughly 0.8 to 1.2. So if the proposed amendment is approved, the resulting job to housing ratio would be 1.22. The existing transportation infrastructure and any effects proposed may have on the capacity of the infrastructure. So the Traffic and Transportation Department did have comments and have added them in here. They basically said that the property is located west side of Highway 29 and south of Cedar Tree Lane. It's a 4-lane divided road, and the county has a project in design to pave Cedar Tree Lane east of Highway 29. However, west of Highway 29, the paving of Cedar Tree Lane is on hold due to a right-of-way issue. The underlying zoning districts and the compatibility for the surrounding DSAP land use designation. The existing parcels are currently zoned as low-density mixed-use and medium-density residential. Surrounding parcels are zoned low-density mixed-use, agricultural, low-density residential, and heavy commercial light industrial. If removed from the sector plan, the following range of permitted uses are allowed for the existing zoning districts. And I'm not going to go through these, but these are straight out of the code for the permitted uses for the low-density mixed use and the medium-density residential. The consistency of any requested future land use designation with the underlying zoning. Although mixed-use suburban isn't the only compatible future land use category for the MDR and LDMU, as per the LDC 3-1.3, it is, however, the most appropriate for this area, and it will be consistent. So prior to the adoption of the Midwest Sector Plan, the two subject parcels were zoned V3 and VM1 with respective densities of 5 dwelling units an acre and 4 dwelling units an acre. When the DSAP came along, these two parcels were assigned conservation neighborhood and wetland areas in the northern part of the western parcel, with a density of 3 dwelling units per acre. Conservation neighborhood is intended for subdivisions for single-family development, and consequently, these two parcels had a decrease in density, as well as the parcel along Highway 29. It lost some of the uses when the assignment of the conservation neighborhood was given. Low-density mixed use would be a more intense use for the uses other than the conservation neighborhood. However, though it does front Highway 29, which is a state road, an arterial road, and it would be more appropriate. So if approved, the future development associated with these parcels would be evaluated by the Development Review Committee, utilizing the current zoning regulations and addressing and trying to minimize the potential impacts for all the proposed development, and any of the issues it may have and meeting all the characteristics of the existing low-density residential in the area. And if approved, the sector plan boundary map would be adjusted accordingly to reflect the removal of the parcel from the plan, and also then the map would be assigned a new designation. That's the end of the.
Okay, thank you, Allison. Allison, or maybe Horace, I think most of the members of the planning board were here during some of the last ones, but just for to inform members of the public that may not be aware of it, could you give a brief synopsis of the action that the county commissioners took allowing this to become an option for the public?
Yes, sir. This has been a good morning, planning board members and staff, as well as any audience members that may be present. My name is Horace Jones, the developer for the Service Department Director. If I can turn my memory cap on, I believe back in the sector plan was always been in place, but I believe back in 2011, and please, if I say anything wrong, if anyone else, because I'm going way back. 2011, the DCA, it was called DCA, Department of Community Affairs back then. They was very, very stringent, and really DCA was basically gutted. It was turned on its head. Many of the rules and regulations and the policies and procedures, they were changed, reformatted, and some were completely removed. Some was added. As I said before, the sector plan was in force and in place. They changed that criteria drastically, and they added an option for those people who have a desire. This is in the state law of the Community Planning Act, that if they have a desire to opt out, that they could. They could. It wasn't that the staff said no, that they could and proceed in that process. So, because of the Board of County Commissioners willing the desire to allow this option to become codified inside the Land Development Code, inside the comprehensive plan, the Board of County Commissioners, they directed staff to basically take some ordinance and take some draft to put this provision in there to look at the sector plan and to make some changes. And this is where we are today. When it first got codified, I'm going very, very quickly. When it first got codified and approved, the ordinance and the comprehensive plan change, it was challenged. It was challenged. There was a circuit court ruling in favor of, we had to go and modify some things, but eventually it came to rule of law with the blessings of what is called DEO at this time. Then we proceeded, the community, the people who wanted to opt it out, they proceeded to go down that path with several opt-out requests. The planning board made recommendations. The BCC approved the opt-out requests. I think it was about 4, 3. I know it was more than 2. Definitely more than 2. Some of those were challenged on the way through circuit courts proceedings, through circuit court rulings, from the administrative law judge in Tallahassee, on what the staff had did on the analysis portion of it, what the planning board made a recommendation, BCC. The rulings were in the county's favor, as well as the applicants who made the opt-out requests. So the process and the analysis and everything, it was challenged, and this is where we are today. We have another one. So basically, the process is solid, it stood its ground, and someone, if they still want to challenge, they still can, but historical precedence has been set, it works, from the administrative law judge of Tallahassee and DEO.
Thank you, Horace. Tim?
Mr. Jones, Horace, I just want to ask you, due to the political history of this, when we go through zoning changes, it's fairly evident what county staff's position is. This one you have to read a little bit longer, a lot longer, and a lot closer. And there's less than a resounding, yes, we are absolutely for it. In fact, it's void of that. It's pretty politically tiptoeing around everything. And as I search through it, I gather you find no reason why this particular one should be stopped from opting out. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. One of the profound statements that was inside the ordinance, that if there was a decrease as a designation of the sector plan, that was one that's inside the Land Development Code, that if there was a decrease, and when the sector plan was put on this property, on this particular parcel of land, Ms. Allison, she read that specifically, there was a decrease with the adoption of the sector plan overlay on these properties. And that's evident that if there was a decrease, that needs to be looked at holistically, and that need to be considered very, very strongly.
Okay. Thanks. I just wanted that on the record because it's challenging to sift through these when we're used to one way, and I really want, not that we always walk lockstep with county's recommendations, however, I certainly want to know where you all stand and why you stand there. And I got through it. It was just a little bit more challenging, a lot more reading of this one, so thank you.
And Mr. Powell, also with that, this was actually the first one that we've had that has had a definite show of decrease, not just from densities, but from uses.
Absolutely.
So,
And let me say that. Thank you, Allison. And that's very poignant. Uses and density. That's a very important that need to be considered. The sector plan, on these parcels, it decreased their uses as well as their density. And that was one reason why the DC at the time looked at it. And that's one reason why we adopted some language specifically because of that inside the ordinance that was written in support of the opt-out procedures.
and this also did not create a fragment. So if a parcel like the one that was done several years ago that was withdrawn, it would have created a fragment. And so it would not, according to the code and the laws, it would not have been able to be approved. But this one, like the other 7, have not created a fragment.
Okay, thank you. Board members, additional questions at this point before we go on to the applicant?
So what you just said, Allison, there was one that was withdrawn not too long ago, but 8 total applications. And thus far 7, this is the 8th. The prior 7 that went through with the application, 100% approved.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, board members? All right, thank you. We'll have our applicant, Mr. Frank Westmark. Good morning, sir. Please state your name and address for the record, sir. Thank you.
Yes, good morning. Frank Westmark, 2025 West Kingsfield Road. I'm here this morning representing the Owen family who wants to opt out of the Midwest Escambia County OSP, I believe is the correct name. And first of all, I'd like to introduce Mrs. Lucy Owen Parker, who, sitting by Elizabeth, who drove in from Birmingham last night to be with us this morning. She's a real estate broker and quite knowledgeable about real estate properties in Alabama, and trying to get knowledgeable about property in Florida. Before I go any further, I'd like to compliment Allison Lindsay for an outstanding professional presentation and analysis. We agree 100%, particularly on the issue that this particular property, the Owen property, was severely downzoned by the adoption of the sector plan and lost substantial development rights and value of the property. As you know now by Ms. Lindsay's presentation, it's a 99-acre tract on US Highway 29. The zoning, county zoning, is LDMU on the front part facing 29, which has about 1,600 feet of frontage, and the back part is MDR, medium density residential. Both of those zonings are compatible with the existing neighborhood. There is full sewer and utilities, everything available for a development that can't take place because of the stringent rules in the conservation neighborhood of the sector plan. I should say that there's, to the best of my knowledge, there's no project pending on this prospective opt-out. The people just want to get the property out of the sector plan so they can return the value that was there once before. I should add that the 2015 LDC revision changed the zonings to the LDMU and the MDR zoning. That was done by the staff who determined that those zonings were appropriate to that property, even though inconsistent with its conservation neighborhood requirements. The Owen case is substantially identical to the Wilson-Robertson case, which I'm sure you all remember from 2017, in that both of those properties lost their mixed-use suburban, MUS, future land use, and their effective zoning due to the adoption of the sector plan's detailed specific area plan, DSAP. The conservation neighborhood FLU allows only residential subdivisions with a maximum of 3 dwelling units per acre and on half of the land used for development. The companion 50% rule requires the landowner to grant the county a conservation easement on the other half of his land on which the development rights are severed forever. And the mandatory clustering and open space design rule adds another layer of regulation, cost, and uncertainty. The net result is the Owen property is devalued and cannot be developed or sold for fair market value because of the regulations, nor can any other property in the conservation neighborhood district of the FLU for the same reasons. The application, Owen's application, is fully in compliance with state statutes and can the county's requirements for sector plan opt-outs, which you have just heard Mrs. Lindsay note. At a recent board meeting that I'm sure you will remember, Mr. Powell noted the opt-outs seemed completely right and logical, but when we look at the sector plan from the aggregate, it's completely logical to keep it in place. Why wouldn't we? That is an important question that didn't get an answer, but it deserves a comprehensive answer. I'm sure you would keep it in the Escambia County, could keep the Escambia County sector plan if it resembled the Bay Walton County sector plan run by St. Joe Corporation, or the Nassau County plan operated by Rayonier Corporation, or the Kings Ranch and Duda Corporation plans in Henry County, and finally the sector plan in Orange and Osceola counties owned and operated by the Mormon Church. Unfortunately, the Escambia County plan bears little or no resemblance to any of those successful sector plans. Those plans have 5 essential elements in common. 1, all of them started with more than 15,000 acres of property owned and controlled by one corporate entity. And that's probably the most fundamental issue with this whole matter. 2, they all have experienced real estate management. 3, they all have adequate funding, private sector funding. They have flexible development plans designed to accommodate the topography, wetlands, so forth. And 5, they all have the support of the local government and the citizenry. Escambia County sector plan has none of these essential elements, and the absence of any one of them is fatal. The Escambia County plan contains more than 1,500 privately owned properties completely unaffiliated and independent from the sector plan's three core development properties. Management is non-existent. There's no funding source for necessary infrastructure like roads and utilities. The plan is so flawed with unreliable data and anti-development restrictions that most property values are degraded and most potential developments are not feasible. In addition, the local government, along with scores of aggrieved landowners, large and small, simply want to get rid of it. The Escambia County plan originated with 3 local developers known as the Development Group, who owned a total of 3,500 gross acres, well shy of the 15,000 acre threshold required by law. The county and the Development Group agreed to hire planning consultants to produce a plan to meet the threshold, the 15,000 acre threshold, and other statutory requirements. The planners started with the Development Group's 3,500 acres and inflated that acreage to 15,000 acres by adding land owned by the Perdido Landfill, the Northwest Florida Water Management District, plus 11,000 acres owned by small private landowners who had not the foggiest idea of what was going on. The small landowners were basically bubble wrap needed to flesh out the sector plan and its detailed specific area plans to exceed the $15,000 15,000 acre gross acres. That number was reduced to 8,611.8 acres of developable land by subtracting non-developable landfill and water management district lands and 4,400 acres of wetlands. The DSAP document on page 22 acknowledges in one brief paragraph that the properties owned by the small landowners contained pre-existing subdivisions and communities. But the DSAP document did not quantify the extent of those pre-existing developments or how much development acreage was already developed. Based on our research into the county's land ownership records, maps, and aerial photography, the land owned by the small landowners contains 7 subdivisions, more than 1,200 homes, and 1,500 different properties when the DSAP was approved. Many of those properties are fenced. The planners ignored that pre-existing development, including hundreds of small parcels like Mr. Brisky's home and 5 acres on Jacks Branch Road, and counted all of those parcels as developable property. Basically, if the wetlands map from 30,000 feet indicated the land was dry, the planners counted it as developable property, regardless of whether there was a residence on it or not. The DSAP maps do not show a single home or structure of any sort, much less 7 subdivisions. The maps present all the land in the sector plan as vacant. If all the subdivisions, homes on small tracts, and vacant parcels too small for development were deleted, the DSAP map would look like a Swiss cheese with multiple remnant parcels and fragmented DSAPs, both of which are prohibited by a comprehensive plan. Neither the Planning Board nor the BCC would have approved the DSAPs, and the county would have saved several $1 million in consulting fees and misdirected staff time. No one can determine with any precision how much land owned by small landowners in the sector plan is actually feasible and available for development. It's certainly not 8,611.8 acres. Some might sell to a development company. Others might not. Several hundred acres of those same properties are in life estates and otherwise encumbered. Many of the properties counted as developable are too small to support a viable development. It's impossible to plan future development orders with such uncertainty. All of the Florida sector plans with one owner have no such insurmountable problems. The only property earmarked and committed to development in the entire sector plan remains the 2,200 acres of vacant, dry land owned by the development group. Those 3 properties remain undeveloped as they were 11 years ago when the sector plan was approved. The claim that the aggregated DSAPs contain 8,611 acres of developable property was based on unsupported assumptions and overcounting land already developed. The data could be as much as 50% wrong to the downside. That means the DSAP calculation tables as to developable land, the jobs to housing ratio, and all the other data and projections are grossly overstated and completely unreliable. The claim that the sector plan was designed to provide a long-range development plan for Midwest Escambia County was false. The plan was designed to enable 3 large landowners to develop their 2,200 acres of vacant land. The claim that the sector plan was designed to provide residential and commercial growth to mitigate the need for further development to the north of the county and stop urban sprawl was false. Despite its apparent good intentions in the beginning, faulty design and severe regulations have effectively blocked development from taking place within the sector plan boundary during the hottest development and building boom that we have seen in our lifetime. Time and again, you have been told the conservation neighborhoods were designed to protect the most environmentally sensitive lands in the sector plan. Those claims were false. The wetlands maps clearly reveal the core development properties with the highest density and intensity uses also contain the highest percentage of environmentally sensitive lands. The conservation neighborhoods where the roads, subdivisions, and houses are located are the least environmentally sensitive properties in the Escambia plan. The DSAPs in the Escambia plan were supposed to be adopted as local development orders in minimums of 1,000 acre increments. They were not. The fact is, the Muskogee and Jacks Branch detailed specific area plans are not development plans at all. They are regulatory platforms designed to strictly regulate actual engineered development orders. To date, only 4 development orders have been issued in 10 years, resulting in 2 small subdivisions and a Dollar General store. Considering 3/4 of the Escambia plan contained 1,500 individually owned properties, most of it in homesteads with joint ownership, there was never a possibility of community connectivity and complementary development or intermodal transportation systems or greenways and walking paths through the DSAPs or any other such amenities. Basically, it was all a fantasy, as the data proved. The planning experts collected their $1 million fee when the DSAPs were finally approved in November 2011 and returned to Orlando. The hype and promise of the sector plan faded away with no development activity. The BCC apparently sensed that the plan was not workable and declined to pursue an earlier infrastructure implementation agreement with the development group. The development group, with its 1/4 interest in the overall plan, couldn't agree on how to proceed together and drifted apart. Starting with Wilson Robertson in 2016, small landowners began to discover the sector plan had downzoned and devalued their property. That surprise started a parade of opt-outs, 8 so far, with 2 more on your agenda next month in June. A number of knowledgeable people who look past the pretty pictures and flowery narrative have testified to this board during recent years about this dysfunctional sector plan. One called it a hoax. Another referred to it as a joke. We call it a SPINO, meaning sector plan in name only. The BCC voted unanimously in July of last year to remove the sector plan overlay entirely and send it to you for a recommendation on the best way to dismantle it. The county legal department has retained a consultant we believe will provide you with a pathway to preserve the vested rights of all the landowners, large and small, and that's essential. As far as we know, it could take a year or more to reach a satisfactory conclusion. Since time is of the essence, we ask in behalf of the Owen family that you recommend the BCC approve their opt-out in the interest of fair treatment for injured landowners, consistent with your previous decisions to approve all opt-outs. If this application is approved, the FLU, future land use of the Owen property, will go back to the MUS FLU as it was before the DSAP was adopted. The property's underlying zonings of LDMU and MDR will remain the same. All the Owen family wants is the simple equity of having its previous development rights and land use restored, which were taken from them without notice or due process. We thank you for your time and favorable consideration. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you, sir. Questions of Mr. Westmark at this point?
Yes, I have one, and Mr. Westmark, you know that I can't think of a time, go ahead.
Wait, Juan, I need my ears. In case I don't hear what you say, she will tell me.
Mr. Westmark, I think you know, if you look back, I can't say that I haven't, but as I recall, in every one of these requests you've come forward with, I have voted for it, and I agree with you. I personally see the sector plan as another example of government overreach in an attempt to address the request of a few who seem to think they would benefit from it. I don't disagree with that at all. But now that we have the sector plan, and I would love to see, I would love to be here the day we get the vote on whether or not to implement something different. I don't know when that'll be, but now that we have the sector plan, one thing I do struggle with is, while it may be hard for me to believe anyone actually moved into the area because of the sector plan, the people that have come along later after it was implemented, who may have, if somebody like that exists, moved in with that idea in mind, I don't know how. I mean, it's a little harder for me to say just absolutely eliminate it without at least considering what their situation might be. I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
I think that Mr. Sammons is asking whether, and it's okay if you have this open, he's asking really whether in the intervening decade, basically, that's gone by, that the sector plan has existed, have people moved into the area? If they have, with the expectation that the sector plan structure existed, what about them? And in a way, that's a great philosophical question, but I think it actually is more appropriate for the discussion that you guys are going to be having, as you know, the Board of County Commissioners has asked you to remove the sector plan entirely, and that vote's already been taken, so that ship has sailed. The question is how it happens and how the various equities of the many people involved get resolved. Does that? Yeah.
Well,
I suffer from the same maladies that Mr. Westmark does. Is that what I was asking, guys? I couldn't hear.
I think one point, Mr. Simons, is I'm not aware that anyone has come to Escambia County as a result of the sector plan. There has been no development in the sector plan to attract anyone to come to the sector plan. All the developers in the area know the sector plan is not a developable plan. And so the entire sector plan, basically for development purposes, is a leper colony.
I would say one thing, probably Mr. Fred Hammer bought in, you know, thinking, but that was early on after one of the original members of the development group didn't make it, and so he stepped in and bought property. So he's been in almost from the beginning, but it was already the sector plan. And I think, you know, he has a development order. Nothing's happened with it yet for Woodland Hills, and he has some other plans, but he understands it's a struggle for him
Yeah.
and a mixed bag.
Fred is a little ahead of the other two development groups. It's my understanding that he has master planned his entire property. He has a development order for a 319 unit subdivision on 99 acres. That 99 acres, by the way, is a carbon copy of the Owens 99 acres, and same kind of land, same everything. They really should be zoned the same way, and if it worked for bad planning, they would be. But Fred came into the game later on. He didn't buy in until 2013, 2014. That was long after the sector plan was approved. And Fred's a good developer, a very astute businessman. He has thus far gotten 2 public-private partnerships approved by the Board of County Commissioners. And it would appear to me that that probably is one of the ways of the future of getting development into Escambia County and getting it done right is through public-private partnerships where the government has some stake in providing infrastructure and the developer also has a big and even a larger stake in providing developer. I think Mr. Jones would agree that sector planning in Florida is obsolete. We haven't had a new sector plan in years and years, and probably won't have another one. The last go around was when Plum Creek Timber tried to get a 40,000 acre sector plan approved in Alachua County, and it got so controversial that the voters turned it down. So sector plan is a thing of the past. Sector planning is a thing of the past. The state has much better planning tools available now than sector plans. So it's not that all is lost. The 2,200 acres out there that the development group has is still there. That's a large chunk of property. That's 4 times the size of the OLF 8 field. Does that answer your question?
I think so. Thanks, sir. Any other questions for Mr. Westmark at this point? All right, sir, we'll give you an opportunity to come back up
I appreciate it.
in conclusion. Ms. Westmark, I know you've already spoken some. You've signed up. Did you wish to speak at this time? Okay, come forward, please.
Elizabeth Westmark, 2025 West Kingsfield Road. Good to see you all again this morning. Very brief here, different kind of approach. I just really woke up in the night thinking about this. Yesterday morning, Frank and I waved our beloved son, daughter-in-law, architect granddaughter, and a tiny fierce dog named Mouse down the driveway back to their home in Alexandria, Virginia. I spent much of the rest of the day reviewing videotapes from 2017 of the BCC as they considered criteria for opt-outs from the sector plan. Even then, when they were as yet unaware of the private property rights disaster known as the 50% taking rule that lay like a buried landmine in the fine print of the DSAP regulations, even then, they understood and discussed that they had seriously downzoned and thereby reduced long-standing development rights of many landowners who were not considered stakeholders when the deals were cut. The Owen family land had its valuable medium-density residential and low-density mixed-use zoning right there on the county's only arterial highway, north-south, US 29, unceremoniously smothered with a restrictive overlay, the conservation neighborhood, for no good reason other than to make it possible for the original development group to be upzoned from agriculture to a mix of high-density districts. The Owen family land, along with owners of nearby similarly downzoned HCLI properties, are the poster children for why the legislatively provided opt-out remedy exists. In my more than 70 decades, I have lived long enough to know that restoring something which has been broken is nearly impossible in this life. But oh my, what a beautiful concept. And so for me, this morning is a joyful moment when you gentlemen have a remarkable opportunity to begin the process of restoring something precious to a multi-generational family, the value of their land, their legacy. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Westmark. Okay, at this point, Ms. Jacqueline Rogers is next, and I know there's several of you that have donated time. Let me just read these out. Ernestine Small has donated 3 minutes, and Roxanne Small, 3 minutes. Was there anyone else that is donating time to Ms. Rogers? Okay, and you, 3 minutes. Okay, and what was your name, please? Okay,
If you want them to go first, and then I'll just, take, so I don't repeat what they say.
I think it's, so basically, if we add this up, you have 10 minutes on the clock.
Okay, my name is Jacqueline Rogers. I live on Ridgeway. I live adjacent to this property. And my backyard is up to this property. I'm 2 houses down from Hillock, which is a dirt road entrance there. I want to say that Fred Hemmer, the one that he's talking about, did buy for the sector plan, and he has not opted out of the sector plan. He has rezoned within the sector plan, and that is always an option also. This is not about the sector plan. This is not a referendum on the sector plan. Some of our residents don't want the town centers that the county allowed when they approved the sector plan in 2011. But you're not going to take away that density from those people. So this is not, we had a nice unsupported soliloquy of what the opinion was, but this is about this property. And this is a comprehensive plan change, which you're trying to change the future land use map. Previously, your staff has documented that the land use, the FLU was agricultural, AG, AA 15. Okay, the MUS was put on after the sector plan was already adopted. That's something, I don't know why they did underline LDMU and MDR later on, but this was ag land before. So you have to consider that too, and that's what a judge would consider as far as takings are going to be considered. And anyone could file a taking thing. We're looking at the documentation that your staff has provided for this FLU change. This is a comprehensive plan change and a map change to mixed-use suburban. The application that it is the burden of the applicant, as you all know, to analyze this and provide evidence that shows the highest amount of development that would be allowed with mixed-use suburban. That's 25 dwelling units per acre. It allows commercial intensities all the way up to heavy commercial. Okay, it does not allow HCLI. It would not allow the light industrial and mixed-use suburban. But those are the uses that the staff should have analyzed. By saying no development is proposed, but we have to hurry up and do this, but there's no development proposed. That's not what you're supposed to look at. As a planning board, you're supposed to say, if we approve this, mixed-use suburban would be 25 dwelling units per acre with commercial uses. Your staff limited their analysis to that statement, and that is not professional planning practices. This is the compatibility. You have to say the compatibility of, if you're going to go to the underlying zoning, you notice how they didn't say low-density mixed use, which allows commercial. What is the compatibility when that's up against our conservation neighborhood homes? What is the compatibility of mixed, medium-density residential, which allows commercial uses and also allows up to 10 homes per acre up next to conservation neighborhood homes? There's no analysis on that. The applicant provided no analysis to the capacity of the water system, just said, my water system's Cottage Hill. Well, we all know that. Is there capacity? Did he get a letter from the water system? No, he did not. The only documentation and data that I see the applicant provided is there's not a historically significant site, which is fine. The staff did the same thing. School, just named the schools. We all know from past testimony that Tate School is near or at capacity, but there's no documentation that there's capacity for this upzoning. We are not against development. There is already development rights of 3 homes per acre. We are against you continually opting these properties out. You've done one on Neal Road already. You've done one on the end of Pine Top at Well Line. Where is the road capacity? You saw a picture of Cedar Tree. It is a dirt road, and you do not have right of way. You do not have funds set aside for that. Hillock going in there is a dirt road. They say they have access through Highway 29, but you can see the applicant provided there's waterways through here. They're going to build a bridge over the waterways and the wetlands to get there, or are they going to come in through Hillock? But there, you haven't, the TTO is like, well, we don't have any concerns because they don't know the area. They haven't done any studies. So these are not identical to the other ones. This was listed as timberland. Your comprehensive plan says you're going to protect agriculture and silviculture land. State statutes requires that. There was no analysis by your staff as how this will affect the silviculture resources in the county. No data was supplied as required by state statute 163-3177, sub 6, sub A, 8B. No planning analysis as to whether this proposed type and intensity of development was suitably based on the habitat and other functions of the natural ecosystems on the property. I'm surprised that Mr. Westmark, as the agent, he knew that he had to hire an outside planner because the staff did not do that. When we went to, not the circuit court, but the Division of Administrative Hearing, he had a planner that had to do all the stuff that the staff should have been doing. We have an environmental department. They're not doing it. They failed to do it again here. County failed to react appropriately to the relevant and appropriate data and analysis on the subject. In this analysis, your staff says about the environmental part, they say, oh, sorry, I'm going to grab this real quick. Natural resources, natural environment. They say there are wetlands and prime farmlands on site. They say, the staff says, if a project submitted to the county, an environmental study will be necessary. No, the state requires that at the comprehensive plan future land use map change. That's in 3177. It's clear. I can read it to you. That's when it's required, and that's what the expert had to go back and do for the Westmarks. It is required now. You cannot push these decisions off to the development review. Yes, there are additional things that will happen, but that data says, the data that this county has, you document it, staff, says that there's wetlands and prime farmlands on the site. No analysis was done as to the impact of assigning mixed-use suburban, a 25 dwelling unit per acre density, or commercial uses that are possible. What is the impact on those wetlands and the prime farmlands? They didn't do that. The county did not analyze the maximum development standards that the future land use map changed without the constraints of the existing zoning. They said, oh, well, this is going to be medium density residential, which is still an urban use, 10 dwelling units per acre. This is urban sprawl. This is putting urban uses up in a rural area and where everything else was low density residential. This used to be ag land. There's ag land touching it. Some of the maps in here are deceiving because it says there's MDR, but they're not MDR. They're conservation neighborhood. They're in the sector plan. So there's underlying zoning, but if those properties haven't opted out, they shouldn't be considered MDR underneath there. This property, if it opts out, yes, that's what it'll be, but the ones surrounding it, so to say there's MDR nearby, no, there's conservation neighborhood, 3 dwelling units per acre, and that's the densities up there. It is professional planning practice to analyze the maximum development potential to determine maximum density and maximum intensity associated with a future land use change. I have a ruling by Judge Folks, the same judge that was in the Westmark case, that came out in April 2022, and that was in her recommended order. And I can supply that to you also. How much time do I have? Okay. The applicant did not show that the infrastructure and the services, the schools, the fire, the EMS, it was their burden to show the school capacity are available to support the most intense development allowed under the requested flu category. That's what's on your application. It says the applicant must show. That's where I'm getting this wording, that the infrastructure and services are available to support the most intense development allowed under the requested flu category. What did they do? They just said, well, I don't think there's any development proposed. That's not what it said. It said the most development allowed, not proposed, not contemplated, because we all know that developers, owners change their mind. Once they get this approval, they can decide at that point whether they want to develop it or sell it to someone else who wants to develop it. And that's right here in your data and analysis requirements, highlighted right there. If you look on what the applicant did provide, they provided that this wetlands attributes on here. There are flooded soils, there are ravines, but no analysis by your staff about how this mixed-use suburban intense commercial possibility development will. This is drainage basin into the Jacks Branch that goes down there. You can see it run, streams running across the property. No analysis by the county's environmental department or outside experts on that. So this is just basic stuff. It's a special flood hazard area. Part of it is in flood hazard area A, and the other part is in X. And this is what the applicant provided, but there was no analysis of what that means when you put this intense development there. This is 3177 from the state statute, and I'll just finish up here. These plan amendments are supposed to talk about the character of the undeveloped land, availability of water supplies, public facilities and services, and the discouragement of urban sprawl. And that is all lacking in this application and also in the staff analysis, which is very disappointing after they've been through the same hearings that I've been through. Thank you.
Good morning, ma'am. If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Betty Tuttle, 1290 Ridge Way, Cantonment. I'm in a piece of property that my backyard will be this new section of the land they want out of the opt-out. I am against the opt-out. I'm a citizen as happy as a clam living in the sector plan. So clearly not all the citizenry is behind that. If I want to get out, it's not true. My main issue is storm damage, storm water damage. You know, I mean, from what I'm reading, it's regional damage, regional drainage is going to be what the plan is. Well, what is regional drainage? I can tell you my experience of what regional drainage is right beside my property on the east side. There's a county ditch that I have to beg them to come clean out. They'll come mow it. They won't dig it out. Over time, sand from all the neighbors, uphill this way, around hill this way, it dead ends where? To the backyard, my backyard. So now you're gonna build behind me, what, maybe 25 homes per acre? Where is all that water gonna go? Is that gonna be on my north side now? I'll be flooded on 2 sides? I can understand the county wants the revenue, they wanna sell homes, they want homeowners in, they want the tax base, but what about infrastructure? That's gonna be 4 new subdivisions eventually, if it's approved. What's your exit route? Pine Top, Hillock, Neal Road, Well Line Road, two exits to 29. Now you're talking about hundreds of homes. You know, they hate the sector plan. We love the sector plan. Well, you got no problem with putting your traffic through my neighborhood to get out, do you? How is that fair to me? What about my property value? All right, thanks.
Thank you. Danielle Ocean Rider? Okay, sorry. Oxen Rider.
Someone rides an oxen is an oxen rider.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Welcome. Please
Thank
state
you.
your name and address for the
Uh,
record.
Danielle Oxenrider. Just a few times. Met my husband on a traffic collision. I was a police officer at the time, and long story short, I looked at it and I totally butchered it too. And he was not the vehicle at fault, so I allow him to drive my son around. Not many people get that privilege. My name is Danielle Oxenrider. I live at 1375 Ridgeway. I thank you all for the opportunity to speak here. I am a mother. I am a homeowner. I am not a huge property owner like the Owens family. I can see both sides of this conversation, though. I do understand where the Owens family is coming from. And while I do like the sector plan, and we did buy in, you can look at when we bought, go online, tax appraiser's office, I did buy in under the assumption that the sector plan would cover my house, that they weren't gonna put in hundreds of thousands of homes. I moved out there, I live on a 2.5 acre property. I do have water problems, she is not kidding. We have a ton of water problems, but that was kind of why we bought out there. We wanna live in an area that is conducive to what we want. My son's in 4-H, we wanna live in an area that's not downtown Pensacola. So that being said, you know, my concerns are just the things that, in my opinion, not that you don't do a great job, but weren't well addressed. The schools, the roads out there are horrible, guys. Like, and the county commissioners, please, you know, I don't mean any offense. They could take offense if they want, but we're not, if you want to put houses out here, that's fine. But you've got to also plan for the said, well, we could do what Navy Federal did. We could put in all this property, all these different, you know, places to work and all this other stuff, and then have traffic problems for years and have people want to kill each other on the road. Trust me, we dealt with some of that down in the city. You know, people pulling guns and whatever because of, you know, I can't get to work. So all that being said, you know, I understand that they don't have a development schedule put together right now. They don't have a development building like what they want to do. I wouldn't either if I was in their place. They want to sell it to the highest bidder. So I want to get it zoned up to whatever I could. Now, as a moderate, I want to tell you, first off, I'd love it to stay sector plan. But as a moderate, I understand the Owens family wanting to go back to the 4 to 5 houses per acre. I could see that, okay? Because you did take money from them. And I'm being honest with you, like that, you did take something from them. If I was there in their position, I would be in the same, I would say, wait a second, hold on a second. But you can't go 7 to 10 units. I mean, you can't upzone them. I have no problems giving back to them what was taken, but you can't upzone them. Now, I'm going to take this hat off, if you would, and I'm going to take another, I don't know if I get more time for that, but my undressing, anyway. From a Cottage Hill water standpoint, I'm on the board. You guys, not you personally, please don't take that as this, but the county has thrown down, we have 5 subdivisions going in right now, okay? I've asked for, can I keep going? Okay. I have 5 subdivisions going in right now. That's over 500 homes, okay? Now, I have no idea. I've heard all these numbers and seen everything on this beautiful staff analysis thing, but you know, I've heard numbers of 716 units. I have 1,413 people. 1,432 people, excuse me, on the water system right now in Cottage Hill. That's more than, that's very close to half of what I think that's downright half of what, you know, we have right now in the water system. So you add that plus the 500 units that I have now, guys, nobody told me that we had to plan for this many homes on a service. Like that wasn't planned for. So now you're basically, you know, going to take what I have and you know, and add another, take half of it and add it to it. I don't have another well. Like, I want to have another well. If you guys will pay for it, I'll gladly take the money. Like, I don't know if you have any additional funds. I'm a woman, I'll take whatever I can get. But I don't, you know, I don't have that availability to give them water at this time. So I thank you for your time. I have, my information is on the little sheet. If I can ask any, or answer any questions now or in the future, I'm available to you.
I have a question. The water utility, what is your standard expansion plan program for, you know, expanding? Because we know that growth is coming, but I mean, obviously this is a lot when you throw the numbers out there, but what is the utilities plan for expanding as it goes forward?
We are looking right now at, we have the property and we're looking at it. With the 500 homes, we're getting very close, okay? I can't do 800, I'm telling you right now, I can't do the 800, I just can't. So at the 500 homes, we're getting close. Now we get like, you know, people, like they said, there's property owners that have one single, you know, they have the life estates or whatever, and they're coming on, and we could take that, you know, as it comes. But this is, I mean, I'm going back, because I had no idea how many homes, because they don't have anything written. You know, I get the proposed building site thing, you know, in the office. And excuse me, I started this in October, and we had, Cottage Hill had an upset. The county, or the community voted out the vice chair, or the chairman and the secretary treasurer. So we're learning how to do all this. But I could tell you that my numbers, what we pump per day, and what our wells are at capacity, you know, what our capacity is, this I can't do right now. I just can't.
So follow-up question, Cottage Hill is kind of sandwiched between ECUA and Molino Water, you're there?
No,
for the
ECUA isn't anywhere near us, not that
Okay.
I'm aware of. ECUA, we do sewer for ECUA,
Okay,
but we are, so Cottage Hill starts at 95A, and it goes north to Quintet, and then like we have some people along the river there up to North Chipper, I think, and then all the way down to 95A, like I said, and then all the way over, I guess, Jack's Branch and whatever, north of Wellline. So we are Farm Hill and Molino. Molino's north of us, and then Farm Hill. And in all fairness, guys, I mean, I've talked to Molino. We have a really good working relationship with them. They just finished one subdivision. Like I said, where am I with this whole development thing? Like, I feel like I'm underwater, you know, trying to keep up. I do. I'm yes, no pun intended. I'm sorry. But I do feel like I'm underwater. So where, you know, did we not see something? Should the past board have read tea leaves? Like, where are we? Well, my understanding is Molino's not getting any development because of whatever is going on in Molino. I can't speak to that. So all the development's being pushed into my neighborhoods, which is fine. I will embrace the people that come along and the new developments. But you just can't throw it on me all at once. Like, I'm willing to work with you all, but I just can't, I can't take it on all at once. So, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, we don't want stores, and, you know, I think there's part of the communities that do. You know, the people who live there, and I can't speak for all of them. But I have a due diligence to go home tonight, because our members are the people that own the company. I don't own the company. I have one board on the, I have one seat on the board. I'm the vice chairman. I have one seat on the board. But I have to do my due diligence now. I have to go back to my community and tell them, hey, look, this is what is being proposed. Because most of those people don't live on, you know, wouldn't have seen the sign. And I need to let them have some input, because this is their water system as much as it is mine. So, does that answer?
Yes,
I'm
thank
sorry. I'm a woman. You give me a few
That's
seconds,
okay.
I'll take advantage of it.
Mr. Chair. Let me recognize Jay first, and then we'll come to you, Gary.
Ma'am, to your knowledge, did the county reach out to you and ask for any kind of analysis with respect to this opt-out?
No. None. But okay, so I'm hearing that it's just an opt-out, that you don't need to. Here's the problem with that, okay? The problem is that they're opting out and they're trying to get more usage. So I understand what they're saying, that they shouldn't have to. But if you're gonna increase the usage for what we are planning, for what the community, like, what we were told that we should be planning for, what the this sector plan that overlays, you know, we weren't expecting this much growth in that area, especially around by, Success and all that, you know, over there. We have a huge development going in north of, like over by Quintet. I'm telling you, we've got a lot going into our community right now. Hundreds of homes all at once, and it's just, I understand, again, I do understand. And I'm not unwilling to play ball, but this is a lot.
Well, I think it's one of the core issues that we have with this process is we continually defer to the DRC for the detail analysis when we could put everybody at ease. If the more information that's provided up front, I think it's gonna make it more palatable for the neighbors to accept or to understand what's happening. And time and again, Ms. Rogers, for every opt-out, she states the same thing, and I agree with her. Why can't we provide the detailed analysis when we hear these opt-out requests, instead of always deferring it to later on down the road? Mr. Westmark, he did a detailed analysis on the number of neighborhoods that are going in. He took the time to do that. County staff has more resources than a single citizen to provide that analysis, and I just don't understand why we don't do that during this part of the process. Mr. Pyle has mentioned it in rezoning cases where it would be to the applicant's benefit if they would get with their neighbors and let them know what's going on ahead of time to ease everybody's concerns. So, you know, we should take a look at ourselves and see what we're doing, and if we provide the detailed analysis, then it would all be up front, and more information is better. Transparency is, I think, very important in this process.
Can I comment to that?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay. As a citizen, again, changing hats, I think that's incredible. Like, I think what you just said is key. You know, as a Cottage Hill, like, I want to be transparent in everything that we do, and that's why I'm going back to show them. But, you know, you guys could get together with the county commissioner for whatever area is being rezoned, and you guys can have a town hall meeting and invite everybody, and the Westmarks can show, like, that's genius. Sorry, I just wanted to say, I love that idea. Sorry.
Mr. Samuels?
I'll give Mr. Pyle credit for that.
Mr. Samuels? I'm good. Okay. Mr. Adams?
Yeah, school's been mentioned a few times, and I got some numbers from April 1st, 2022. Tate has 37 available seats. Pine Forest has 62 available seats. Northview has 87 available seats. Now, with all that stated, we do have the ability to upsize by modulars and other things. Like, I'll give you an example, Beulah Elementary. We got a multi-million-dollar project going on there to bring in more classrooms, more capacity to fit it. So the superintendent is aware of the situation. He's looking at different avenues to meet. Because it's not just this. There's a lot of developments coming through that don't even come through this planning board. So you see them popping up. So, but anyway, so he's looking at it. So we may have to do some more construction dollars to meet the demand, not just with this development, but for all of them.
Right, well,
So-
and I'm just speaking to Cottage Hill, which has
Right. I'm speaking
almost
for
14,
Scam School
right,
District.
1,400 seat, or 1,400
Yeah.
homes going in proposed. I don't, is that 716? Is that what we're talking about? Is that what they would go to?
There's been no proposed project on the property.
What would it go, I'm sorry, I guess I misunderstand. The land use, so they're asking just to be opted out of the sector plan and that's it? Or they're asking for another
They're just asking to get out of the sector plan, to be removed from the sector plan, and that 716 was out of the chart of using the highest density and for the number of units for the 716. Now, noting, even if you have a development that you want to put 716 homes in there, you're not going to get the whole 716 after you put your roads, all your infrastructure in there, and your stormwater, and you account for the farmland, the prime soils, the wetlands. You're not going to get that total 716. But that was just what they have used to give the number using the highest case.
Right, Worst case scenario. Gotcha.
Sure.
Could I add one more
Go ahead, Jim.
comment? And again, the analysis should be based on max build-out, if approved. So whether it be 716 or whatever the max build-out, that's how that should be the baseline, the start point. That way we have a point of departure.
Come forward and, I know you want to address that.
Again, thank you. We're glad to have you today. Again, respectfully, the analysis that have been presented, the same process, the analysis has been vetted, it's been supported by administrative law judges, indicating that what we have presented in the past is substantial and it meets the letter of the law. With that being said, they also said, I know we are not here to try these cases again. We're not here. I'm just trying to reiterate to what you're saying, Mr. Ingram. Also they also, and it's in the state law, that's what we gotta know the state law. It says that when you're doing these items, that after you opt out, you get the zoning ordinance, the zoning of that particular ordinance. There's no way you're gonna get 25, 20 dwelling units per acre. We go by the zoning, and once they put on, if whatever the project it may be, at this time, we do not know. And that's why we can't do too much speculation until we do know more definite. Once we do know what is going to be according to the state law that we got to work with, they said you got to present, go through the site plan, preliminary plan, whatever process. And if they can't do it, that whoever is developing, they gotta go back and they gotta remodify and make some changes to their plan, because they're gonna have to have water, they gotta have the streets, all of those things. So at this level, we're at the 35,000 foot level at this time. But I do want to say, the zoning, I know you're trying to say the comprehensive plan. No, the zoning is they're gonna have to go by, that zoning. So, and again, when it comes to development, according to state law, it says that you get at the time of application, they're gonna have to come through all of our processes, whatever it may be. And if they can't meet concurrency, school concurrency, they gotta do what they gotta do. If they can't meet Cottage Hill here, and we do, I know some projects right now that are being held up because of that same thing. So it will be whomever the developer is at that time. Just trying to, and I sure want you to contact. Yes, at that time of development, then that's when, if they have to make adjustments, because when they come to get permit from this building, if it's not there, they will not be able to get final plat approval, a DRC or a DO at that time. But the process has been vetted thoroughly, and I know someone will say that's not the case. It has been proven in court on many occasions. So I just want to say that for the record, but we're just looking at this specific project, and at this time, there is no project known, and the state law said once that is known, then that's when the hard work actually began. Thank you.
Thank you, Horace.
Horace, can I ask one?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Horace, I have one question real quick. How would you respond to this is the main rub as I see it. Would you say this opt-out is a restoration of prior
Yes.
yield that the homeowners had, or would you say this is an upzoning?
I would say this is restoration, because they was previously, they were down zone. They had decreases in uses and density. And for this particular, not in all cases, but in this case, there was some, like you said, Mr. Salmons, perhaps there was overreach, but it occurred. And we try not to do that. But the structure planning, there are some issues where these were decreases, and this is a decrease in the uses, please correct me, Allison, in the uses and density.
And also, if you remember too, in the beginning, when the DSAP, before it was adopted, this was basically the large landowners and developers. Some of these, mom and pop owners of smaller landowners, they didn't know. Even though we had workshops, we had things going out, they weren't aware of it. Then when they became aware of it, they thought, oh, okay, wait, I don't like this idea. So all they want to do is take their land, like the two other properties we've had that were opted out. They live there currently, and they just wanted to be back to where they were prior to the sector plan. They aren't developing, they are living there, that's their forever home. Not to say that that's gonna be with everything, but kind of back to Mr. Ingwell's case, there's scenarios for everything. If you say, okay, this 99 acres is gonna be a subdivision, it's gonna be a multi-commercial, complex, you have to spend money and resources to do drawings and soil samples and all this, and you may not do that, so they don't know what they're gonna build at this particular time, if they ever build at all. So my thing is, like Mr. Jones says, the density is from the zoning, medium density residential and low density mixed use, the 7 and the 10 dwelling units per acre, whereas conservation neighborhood was 3. But they didn't ask for the conservation neighborhood. They didn't realize they were in the sector plan with prime soils and prime farmlands and wetlands and things that would hinder the development. So I think it's very hard to do an analysis on something that you are just changing, like the 3,500 level, you are changing the layer, not the development. You don't know what's going to be built. You could sit here all day and say, I'm going to have a 716 unit subdivision. I'm going to have an apartment complex. But then that might give you some information, but it may not be accurate. So it's really hard to do analysis on something that is air.
Okay. Is there any more questions for Mrs. Oxenrider?
Mr. Chair, I just have one question for Allison, or
Okay,
one
I'm
comment.
just,
I'm sorry.
thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you. All right.
You just said 7 and 10, but I thought it was in 2011, I thought it was 4 to 5 per acre. That's why I'm confused. So, I just asked if we were going back to what they had originally, was it not 4 to 5, or it was 7 to 10 before, before 2011? So was it 5 to 10, or was it 4 to 5, or was it 7 to 10? You follow my question?
There's a couple different, Andrew Homer, Escambia County Development Services. The timing of this, there's a couple different things. We had, under our 2020 future land use zonings, that went with those future land use categories.
That was in 2020?
That was the 2020 comprehensive plan, okay? The 2030 comprehensive plan, with its future land use map, which is what they want to go back to, allowed for certain zonings underneath it. The 2 zonings that are on the property are compatible with the 2030 future land use. That was all done as part of one study, the CCAS study. I know the argument's been made, well, that CCAS study, that the entire future land use and zoning for the entire county is based on, well, it's too old, it's not valid. It's the same circa as the sector plan, which, everyone says that's perfect data. What they want to go back to is the future land use that was granted to them through that study. All that data analysis was done for the entire county to support those future land use categories. When the sector plan came in, this then became their future land use. They're asking for that to be removed, to go back to the future land use that was approved and designated through the old DCA, that all the data analysis was done on back at that time. So the units that they're asking, your density, each future land use category allows for certain zonings underneath it. Your overall density is set by your future land use category. The zonings that are allowed underneath it, each one have different ones, but they cannot exceed the future land use category. So at the end of the day, what was their future land use and zoning way back when under the old plan, that's gone. To tell someone, if you you get out of the sector plan, we're going to revert you to the previous future land use and zoning that's no longer effective, is a problem. We have to go with what we have. So the future land use they're seeking, mixed use suburban, which was, once again, the adopted one given to that property, 25 units an acre. I don't see how anyone could develop that on there. Once again, as Ms. Lindsay pointed out, there are development concerns, and this is all in our code. You can look it up and see the different future land use categories. We've got an actual chart that breaks them out. That's what they're seeking to do, to go to that future land use. The zoning that's on there is compliant with that future land use. So what they're eventually going to do with the property, it's up to them. Right now, what they're seeking to do is remove the sector plan designation.
Okay, thank you, Drew. Very, very good explanation. Did you have a question?
No, I was just gonna sum it up as a summary. You cannot restore to an obsolete statute, so that's.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
That's what it amounts to.
Mr. Chair, one comment. Allison, the point I was trying to make is, we're not asking for a detailed analysis on a plan, on a potential plan development, but rather analysis based on, a max build out. I mean, I don't think that's too much to ask. Where, I mean, we did it. If you look in the findings, you provided pretty detailed analysis on the jobs to housing ratio. I don't know why the same level of effort can't go into, hey, let's look at a potential max build out and provide the analysis on infrastructure requirements, fire, police, schools, water. I mean, it's not, I don't think that's too much to ask, and I think it would help a lot of folks understand, and again, provide the transparency, and also show that we did do provide the details as early in the process as we could, and actually for this board. Why push it down the road for the DRC if we can provide it now earlier? I think it's going to help people understand.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Rogers, I see you. I'm going to go through the rest of the speakers and then give you an opportunity to come back up. Mr. Larry Downs?
I'm just gonna prop it right here. And I noticed that everybody's been getting a little extra time, and I wouldn't mind that same courtesy forwarded to me. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Same way with our freedom, same way with our property rights. I mean, I feel like I'm just repeating, parroting the COVID get your shot stuff, but, the theme seems to be, let's get everybody together and make everybody sing Kumbaya. Listen, I got neighbors that do things that I don't like that they're doing. That's what people do. I don't come up here begging y'all to stop my neighbor from building a 17,000 square foot mansion next to me. I'm going to help him do it, especially if he wants to pay me. But that's the thing. I mean, who gets to decide? Because a few neighbors come up here and blah, 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 blah. I don't want. That's what you hear. And then y'all got to come up here and decide, well, who gets the wants? Who doesn't? The bottom line is, this is an opt-out. Y'all have already done them. All of this is gobbledygook. It's blah, blah, blah for nothing. Y'all know you got to opt this property out. Why even ask any more questions? It doesn't matter. You're making them feel good. You're making Jamie feel good. You're making them all feel good because you're asking them questions. Let me bring it down. Whew, holy sh... Anyways, I agree with mostly what Mr. Westmark says. I love the dude. But, he says stuff up here that I don't agree with. I don't agree with this public-private partnership. I think we're going to get in a lot of trouble with that type of stuff, and he just said that that's kind of the way of the future. Oh, we are in trouble. if the way of the future is public-private partnerships investing our money, that's where we're getting in trouble here. Man, I got so many dang notes here. One of them says, "What the TF?" All right. There will be so many things that will keep these people from developing their property. You know, Mr. Westmart said, you know, it's anti-development. That's what this zoning was. That's what this sector plan was, anti-development. How did we become so anti-freedom in this country? From every city, county, state, we have become anti-freedom. There's no arguing that fact. Y'all know it. I know it. Everybody in this audience knows it. There's no way around it. So let's move forward with this because you have to legally. We know that. I don't know how many people, I don't know what, you know, the rest of them are going to say. Just another 30 seconds. I just want to and get together with the neighbors and see if we can all get along, that type of stuff. That just doesn't work. You know, what we have to do is figure out how to accommodate freedom. That's prosperity. There's one more thing on here. Oh, dang, I forgot to open up with this. Mr. Jones was going to donate 3 minutes for me. So I forgot.
He's gone now,
He's
so you
gone.
lost your 3 minutes.
Can't
Larry.
even do it because he's not here. All right, thank y'all. I'm in favor of this opt out. I would like to opt out of a lot of this government overreach. He's got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Oh, and if any of the county commissioners watch this, I would love for a seat on this board. Holy, would that be fun? And of course, I'd volunteer and pay for it.
Get your phone there,
Get your
Larry.
phone.
All right. Before
That's gonna look weird.
before I recognize Ms. Rogers to come back up again, I just wanted to say something that I think we're missing a couple of key points here. I've never hid the fact that I'm a property rights advocate. Larry, I agree with him in many instances on your right to use your property and the Constitution of the United States. What I don't hear many people who are opposed to this saying is what happens to these folks who have had a decrease in their use and density. There was a government action that took away uses and densities from these people's property. That's what we're trying to reverse. The government action that took away, let me say that again, government action took away uses and densities from these folks. That's all we're trying to reverse here. Ms. Rogers always is prepared. She always speaks eloquently, as does Mr. Westmark. I respect their opinion. But in the bottom line, it comes to me that a government action has taken away uses and densities of an individual property owner, and that does not line up with being a property rights advocate. So I have a problem with that. The second thing I want to say is we get hung up in analysis at this level. I was here when this sector plan was put in place, and I can tell you it was done in good faith. The members of the board who voted on it did not see the unintended consequences of taking densities and uses away from people. The original intent of this was to do what many of you are crying out for, which is plan for the future. This was supposed to be the big plan for the north end of the county so that it could be controlled, planned, and designated. Well, as we know today, unintended consequences. Because it was a net zero proposition, some people may have gained some density or uses where others lost it. And I cannot in good faith vote for someone having a decrease in uses and density through a government action. I just can't support that. So the second thing I wanted to say was we come up about the DRC process, and I don't know how many of you have actually been through the DRC process. I have. And I can tell you that it is a very arduous process. You have every single angle of county government regulations coming at you. Did you do this? Did you do this? Is this permit approved? It's a very arduous process, and I'm not going to go through the whole entire thing right now, but I just want you to understand there is stopgaps in place. There are things that address drainage and water flow, roadway, traffic concurrency, schools. All of those things are addressed in the DRC process, and it is not easy. They will stop a project if it doesn't meet those standards. That's what you need to understand, is that there are things in place to do that. We just think, oh, it's going to the DRC, it'll automatically get approved. No. A lot of them, I'd be interested in finding out, a lot of them get turned down and have to go back to the drawing board and redesign, renegotiate. All kinds of things have to happen. So don't just think that the DRC process is a rubber stamp, because it is not. So I just wanted to get that on the record to say that I can't support decrease in uses and densities for a property owner. I know we can argue about when the analysis should be done at this level or at the DRC level. The point is the analysis is being done, and there are stop gaps in place to make sure that the citizens are being protected. So with that, Ms. Rogers.
Thank you for your indulgence, and I'm not going to introduce more testimony, I'm just going to correct some few things that were said.
Yes, ma'am.
What you're talking about, the property rights and the sector plan, that's a separate issue. That's about whether we should do away with the sector plan. This is a comp plan amendment hearing, and it says in 3.177, section 5A2, the future land use plan and plan amendments shall be based upon survey studies and data regarding the area as applicable, including the character of the land, the availability of water supplies, public facilities and services, the discouragement of urban sprawl, and there's other ones in between, but these are the ones that I think are particular. Do I need to stop?
No, go ahead.
So the state statute requires this because there is supposed to be comprehensive planning. It doesn't have, like he said, it doesn't have to have the detail. It wouldn't just be nice. You are required to do this. If you ask Mr. Jones or Miss Lindsay if the planner that Mr. Westmark had to hire at the Division of Administrative Hearings did an analysis for 25 dwelling units per acre, mixed-use suburban, the answer would be yes. The staff failed to do it, but the planner, the professional planner, when he went to the Division of Administrative Hearing, even though you guys passed it without it, he knew that the judge would look for it. He did the analysis. It's all, is that not true? He's not here. Ms. Lindsay, is that not true that Mr. Metcalf did the analysis for 25 dwelling units per acre for the mixed-use suburban flu? Okay, I totally recall. I can give you the information.
Ms. Rogers.
So I'm saying it is required by law.
Let me just say this. I know that you've appealed and there's been decisions made by the circuit court and the administrative judge and everything like that. So I'm going to refer to our board attorney, and in cases where I am not a lawyer, I don't know the law as well as he does, we're going to ask you, in your professional opinion as an attorney, do you feel like the analysis that was done, the staff analysis that was done in this case, meets the letter of the law that is required and has been appealed and the cases have been done?
Mr. Chairman, if you were to approve this today with the data and analysis, I believe it's a defensible position.
Thank you, sir.
And
Closing statements, Ms.
The last
Rogers.
thing that I will say is this statement from the same judge in the last hearing for the opt-out. This is in her statement, her recommended order. She says, there's no question, this is a different municipality, no question that the city failed to consider the maximum development potential made available through designation of the property, and their zoning was neighborhood special district. It is professional planning practice to analyze maximum development potential to determine maximum density and maximum intensity associated with a FLUM, future land use map change. It is not professionally acceptable to do less. This is now case law, April 2022 by Judge Folks. A professionally acceptable methodology would be based on the maximum development potential authorized by the Flum Amendment, identification of the capacity of water supply and wastewater treatment facilities that would serve the development, and an analysis of the capacity to provide service, taking into account existing and committed demands, which is what Mrs. Oxenreider talked about, and any committed plans to increase capacity in the future. This is required. We now have case law, April 2022, from the same judge that she did not rule for me. I did not have a lawyer, and I did not have a land use planner that did do the maximum analysis at 25 dwelling units per acre.
Ms. Rogers, as I stated, I believe what you're telling me is accurate. I have no reason to doubt it. I can't rule on the law. I've asked the board attorney his opinion. He said that he believes we're in a defendable position for the staff analysis.
Can you guys
So,
read the law? 163-3177.
I'm
I know you
asking the
won't-
professional opinion of a lawyer who has a law degree and is admitted into the Florida bar. That's good enough for me.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but I have to rely on something, and I'm going to rely on his credentials and his
You do realize
qualifications.
there was a case where Escambia County lost for not doing data and analysis.
I'm not going to go into other cases. We're going to
Thank
address
you.
this one. Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone who has not spoken on this matter yet that wishes to speak? All right, hearing none, we will hereby close the public comment portion. Mr. Westmark, your closing statement, sir.
Well, I didn't prepare one, but Drew Holmer over here made a very good point earlier that I would like to, that I think I said, and I would like to follow up on, is that what I told you earlier is that the Owens family would simply like to go back to where they were 10 years ago under the 2030 comprehensive plan, where they had the assigned flu at that time was mixed use suburban. Now, there's no intention, none whatsoever, to increase densities to thousands of homes and all this kind of stuff. You know, we have gone through that with 2 full-blown trials, administrative hearings, of which Elizabeth and I were involved in one, and I can assure you that's a pretty thorough process. Mrs. Rogers has made all these points before in court, and they have all been rejected without any validity whatsoever by a judge. The judge's rulings have stood up to final orders by the Department of Economic Opportunity, which is the final judiciary body in Florida. And so here we are arguing about, oh my goodness, we're going to go from 3 dwelling units per acre to 25 dwelling units per acre. Well, no such thing is going to happen. It's just not going to happen. That would, first of all, challenge whether or not that would be compatible with the neighborhood. Is that right? You would look at that. Any development that might take place on the Owen property, and I'm not sure there ever will be one, you guys, and we still thank you very much, allowed us to get out of the property, out of the side of the sector plans, but we went through administrative hearing, took over a year and a half. We've been out of it for a year. Well, what's happened? We're not developers. We've been accused of it. Lord knows I've been called worse names than that, so I'm not going to complain about that. But we're not developers. We had no intention of developing our property from the get-go. We just want the property and our property rights back, that's all. And so we don't have any intention of doing any developing. The other opt-outs that we've been involved in Two of our neighbors, the Jollies, the Arnolds, they don't have any intentions of developing. We did a little work with the church, you know, the Cottage Hill Baptist Church. I don't know what's happened to that property, but there's been no development there. I did find out yesterday that the Zachaley's property, that you may recall up there, adjoins the Knollwood subdivision where these folks live, is now going to turn into a Lennar, which is the second largest builder in the country. Lennar subdivision with, I think that's 82 single family residences on approximately 30 acres, or 2.25 dwelling units per acre. Now that's, you know, not, that's a long ways from 15, 20, 25 units per acre. MDR, which the Owen family has on 40 acres of its property, they'd be lucky to get more than 3 dwelling units per acre on that property. They can't go up to 10, 15. The maximum is 10, but you just can't get there. Is that right, Mr. Holman? You can't get there. 3 is about as much as you can do. Fred Hemmer has MDR property up there on his subdivision that he has a development order for in Quintet, and slightly over 3 dwelling units per acre is the most he could get for MDR, and that's what he's got. Suburban Gardens is equivalent to MDR. Mr. Hemmer is the only one that has increased density to high density mixed use on his property up there near that development. And Neighborhood Center, which allows commercial, that's an upgrade. Nobody said a word about that. That's in the sector plan, under sector plan rules. We didn't even know you could do that. If we had known that you could make a modification to the sector plan rules, we would have requested moving from conservation neighborhood to MDR a long time ago. So, you made 2 excellent points, Mr. Chairman. We have private property rights issues here that are serious. One is constitutional, one is statutory. In the statutory realm, we have Chapter 70 to deal with, and counsel over here can tell you as much about that as I can. It could either be under takings law, or Chapter 70 takes over where takings law ends and makes the landowner whole at the county's expense. The other is a prohibited exaction, Chapter 70.45, I think it is, you could look it up, 74.5. 50% rule is a prohibited exaction. That's been ruled unconstitutional by the United States Supreme Court as recently as 2013 in Florida, a case against St. John's Water Management District. The state of Florida passed a law in 2015 making it unlawful to do a prohibited exaction, and they felt so strongly about it that they removed the sovereign immunity of the state, so that if a county did something like that, there's no limit on the amount of damage that could be assessed to the county or the water management district or any political subdivision in the state. So we're talking about serious business here. When I said a while ago, it's essential that when you get to dismantling the sector plan, you have got to make sure that everybody's vested rights are preserved, because there's substantial liability involved. That's a critical matter. And we have been riding on substantial liability against the county with this sector plan for a long time. We will be a whole lot better off without it and try something new. And basically that's where we come from. I totally agree with you. You can't deny people the right to recover what the government has taken away from them without compensation. This is just not the way we operate in Escambia County or the state of Florida. Now, I could go on with this for the next half hour, 45 minutes, but you fellows get the point. What we're dealing with here, from the very get-go, was a bad plan. Now, just there's no polite way to say it. It's a bad plan. It is not functional. It's never performed. There is absolutely nothing that you can do to tweak it, to make it better, or anything else. You just have to pull it out, root and branch, and that's what the Board of County Commissioners has asked you fellows to do. So here we are. I am going to sort of chill on this. You won't see me again unless you invite me to come back up here and make another speech. But I'll leave it with you because the final action is yours on this Owens opt-out. The two opt-outs that you'll be looking at on your agenda next month, and perhaps more, because Lord knows government moves slow and we don't know how long it's going to take before this sector plan goes away. But one way or the other, this sector plan is going away. There's none of these opt-outs are going to hurt this sector plan anymore. It's a dead duck. And so from the very outset, there was no chance that the planners or anybody else could make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. That's where we've been the whole time, the last decade, stuck with a sow's ear.
Thank you, sir. Board members, questions of staff, Mr. Westmark, discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
First thing is, I'm curious, do y'all want to start a pool on how many days over and under before we see Mr. Westmark again? Second thing is, I want to, my remark earlier about government overreach, I want to expand that briefly because there's been some discussion about it. Recently, I replaced a shed on a piece of property. Just replaced a shed, and it was 12 by 18. And it was in the corner of my yard. The other two property owners whose property butted up right next to it had their sheds, one within about 8 inches of the property line and the other one within about 28 inches of the property line. I had no objection. We have a great relationship. One of those sheds was there when I moved there. One wasn't. It was built afterwards. I don't have a clue if they got a permit or not, but I know what the setbacks were then. And I'm not complaining, and please don't go report them. But I had to get a permit, pay $235, and I had to keep my shed 3.3 feet and 1 inches from the property line. I don't think that's on the employees of the government. And sometimes I think when they pass these rules and laws and try to implement them, I think they're just unconscious as to how ridiculous some of it is. But it was absolutely ridiculous for me to have to go through that process and wait until the inspector showed up before I could begin using that shed. One of the reasons why is because they're way behind a couple of weeks. So I invest $8,000, $9,000 in a shed that is well within what would be acceptable. But I got to wait 2 more weeks after that, plus the $235, in order to access or to use the shed. And that is, when I'm talking about government overreach, that's just a small example of what it is. And then second, even though discussion is not over, I want to move for approval of OSP 2022-01.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Discussion by board members. Anyone want input before we take the vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I got a time certain. I'll be
Okay.
looking.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, our next hearing, actually, let's go ahead and take about a 5-minute break. I know we've been sitting here for quite a while. Let's just come back at, it's 10:35, so let's come back at 10:40, please. All right, folks, I'm going to ask you to please come back to order, take your seats. We still have a couple more things to get out of here. All right, I hereby call the planning board meeting for May 3rd back to order. We have a public hearing concerning review of an ordinance adopting the 2021 through 2025 update to the 5-year schedule of capital improvements. And who's doing that? Oh, John, how you doing, buddy? Good morning. If you'll introduce yourself, please.
Good morning, Chair and board members. My name is John Fisher, Senior Planner for Development Services. What you have in front of you is a yearly update of what basically the budget is for the major departments. You know, even the school board has their budget in here. Their major capital improvement projects that they're planning on doing. This is really a review. If you have any questions, I'm not here to really answer any questions because I'm just the man to put it together. So we can always bring in anyone from engineering, the school, parks, recreation, any of those that need to be brought in to answer any questions about it. This goes to the Board of Commissioners as an action item for them to vote, just basically as an update that they do every year.
Okay. I don't have any questions on this one specifically, but I would ask, and I see Horace has left, so we'll go to Drew. We probably need to have kind of a brief update on traffic, you know, roadways and everything, just some of the major projects, so we kind of could, I know we don't control that, but at least for planning purposes, so we know what's coming down the pipe and everything like that.
Are you talking county local projects or like
Just-
TPO, Transportation Planning Organization, you know, overall regional projects?
I would say just Escambia County, you know, improvements that are happening. We don't need to know about, you know, Santa Rosa County and all the other regional areas, but just mainly Escambia County.
The CIP does show the local ones in there. Anything that's on state roads and stuff would be, you know, through the TPO.
Okay. I'm just thinking maybe just a, you know,
We can
a
schedule
10-minute
that.
presentation, you know, hey, this segment of Pine Forest Road is getting expanded, or whatever it may be. Just, you know, just kind of bring us up to speed, because that's always helpful when we kind of know what's coming down the road.
We will
so.
speak with that department and tell them we need to set up a presentation.
Yeah, they could just add it on the agenda to the regular board meeting, and
Okay.
more just the information, I think, for us to kind of know, because even though we don't get involved in it, you hear obviously every single meeting, traffic, you know, comes
Everything
up,
ties
so,
together.
Yeah, it'd be good for us to at least have that knowledge, so. Right, questions for John?
Just curious, more or less for selfish reasons, as you compiled this, the CIP for the various areas, how much discussion is out there right now with regards to supply chain and pricing escalation impacting your capital improvements?
I know it's always an everyday topic, you know, on the engineering side, you know, as they, you know, try to get bids and, you know, bids are probably higher than they expect sometimes. But it's just a general conversation when they go to try to get a road project. I don't know about any of the other, you know, facilities or anything like that. And I really, not in the engineering department or public works to really address that.
I didn't know how long ago this was completed or compiled, so I was wondering if adjustments have been made recently due to quick hikes and things.
It's, as far as I know, it's the regular bidding process, you know, as they go through. And they advertise, they bid, and hopefully they stick to that plan. As you always know, everything comes over at the end.
Gotcha. Government just raises taxes if they need more money. Don't you know that? All right, anything else? All right, thank you, John. And this is an actual public hearing, so we have to move to adopt. Motion, do we have a second? Second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, anything for action, discussion, info items?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. Public forum, Larry, you signed up for public forum?
Just a public service announcement.
Hit your mic.
that it? Hey, y'all check out my Facebook, Larry Downs Jr. I can't put it on YouTube or nothing, but yesterday I did an interesting interview in the parking lot of Academy Sports and Outdoors. An Australian American and his, I don't know if it's his wife or girlfriend. He's American, but he's been here for a while. But check it out. It's amazing. It's kind of telling as to what the mindset is. It's 12 minutes long. You're going to be hanging on every word. Check it out. Larry Downs Jr. Facebook. And thank y'all for your service today. Holy I love seeing more freedom. I'm telling y'all, if we get it more, and I know y'all love it too. Who could be against freedom, really? I mean, very few people can. I mean, actually, probably a lot of people can, but as we've seen over the past few years. All right, thank y'all. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you, sir. All right, Drew, anything, director's review, anything to update us on?
No, sir.
Okay. Let's jump back real quick to the follow-up action reports and everything outlook. Do we know what our agenda's looking like next month?
We have 2 rezonings, 2 opt-outs, and SRIA should be making an appearance as well.
Okay, what are they coming for?
Floodplain ordinance they need to do one. We don't have to make a recommendation, the BCC will be making a recommendation.
It's for information more than anything else. They are making changes to their section of the land development code.
Okay, all right.
Totally unrelated news, I'm on vacation next month. No, just strategically on the first week of June.
All right, thank you. Matt, anything from the attorney's office?
No, Mr. Chairman, just to tag on to the Island Authority floodplain management, there's a slew of floodplain management ordinance rewrites that are coming through, both to the LDC and to the Chapter 14, which is the building code version. So a couple of those will be coming before this board before they go to the BCC.
Okay. All right. All right, if there's nothing else, the schedule of future meetings will be June 7th here in this meeting room at 8:30. And if there's nothing else, we are adjourned. Thank you.